I will never love a woman as much as I've loved Mary. I will never love anyone as much as I love my Mary. And I say that to you as a little bit of a confession, because believe me, I of all people understand what kind of love it is demanded by Jesus. A complete love, a full body, mind, and soul love. That's what is demanded by Jesus, the Son of the Most High God. And I've never been able to give him that kind of love, the kind of love that he really deserves. But my Mary, oh boy, do I love my Mary. You know, I never really knew her all that well. It wasn't important to know her. I was betrothed to her, and she was betrothed to me. There would be plenty of days and months and years for us to get to know one another. No, I didn't really know her all that well, but I knew what I needed to know about her. She was my betrothed. And not only that, but I knew that she was a daughter of David's tribe, Judah, a daughter of David himself. And even more importantly, perhaps, I knew that she was the daughter of a faithful and pious Jew by the name of Yaakov. Oh, I loved her father, Yaakov. He and I used to debate all the time in the synagogue. He was an expert, especially in the Nevi'im. Now, he knew his Torah and he knew his Ketuvim, but he really loved the prophets. He knew the prophets inside and out. And usually we'd be debating some finer verse or some finer point in Moses or in the Psalms. But when it was time to debate some finer point among the prophets, oh, would Yaakov shine. I wanted a faith like his. I remember one conversation I had with him. Yosef, he said. Yosef, come. Yes, Yaakov, yes. What is it? He said, does not the prophet Isaiah say that the Messiah will be born to a virgin? Well, I said, Yaakov, it could be. It is impossible, however, for a virgin to give birth to a son. So perhaps, and I do know my Hebrew, Yaakov, I said, that little word that means virgin, it could also mean young woman, could it not? Yaakov, am I not right about that in my Hebrew? Oh, yes, Yaakov said that. You do know your Hebrew well, but do you know your prophets? Again, he asked me, is it possible that the Messiah could be born to a virgin? I said, it is not possible. For no man can be born to a virgin. I said, perhaps the prophet is just letting us know that the Messiah will be born to a young woman. And he said, now why would the prophet point out to us that the Messiah would be born to us in the same way that every single other one of us is born? Are not all the sons of Israel, Joseph, are not all the sons of Israel born to a young woman? I thought, I've got him. I said, was not Isaac born to an old woman, Yaakov? Oh, Joseph, you've been studying your Torah. Yes, indeed. He was born to an old woman, and was she not barren and 100 years old? Yes, Yaakov, she was. And do you think it is possible, Joseph, that a man could be born to a barren woman of 100 years of age? Do you think that is possible, Joseph? No, Yaakov, that is impossible. That is not possible, and yet I believe it. That is how I was taught to respond. It is not possible, and yet I believe it. All of the promises of God that had been fulfilled, all of the miracles that had come through the fathers that had clearly taken place, all of those mysteries of God that were revealed and then had come to pass, every single one of them was impossible. But we were taught to say, yes, it is impossible. Yes, it is not possible. However, I believe. And so that is how I replied when he asked me if it were possible that a man could be born to a barren woman who was 100 years of age. No, Yaakov, it is not possible, and yet I believe. And he kept going. He said, and is it possible, Joseph, that Moses could see a bush burning, and yet the wood was not consumed? Is that possible, Joseph? No, that is not possible, Yaakov, and yet I believe. And is it possible, Joseph, that Moses and all 12 tribes of Israel could have passed through the Red Sea on dry ground? Is that possible, Joseph? No, Yaakov, it is not possible, and yet I believe. I was starting to feel defeated, of course, at this point. And is it possible, Joseph, is it possible that Hananiah and Azariah and Mishael, is it possible that they could pass through Nebuchadnezzar's furnace and come out the other side and not even smell like smoke? Is that possible, Joseph? And I said, no, it is not possible, Yaakov, that they could even pass through the fiery furnace of Nebuchadnezzar. Joseph, no, Yaakov, it is not possible that they could pass through the fiery furnace. Less of all is it possible that they could come out the other side, not smelling like smoke. No, it is not possible, and yet I believe. And then he looked at me and he said, and is it possible that the Messiah will be born of a virgin? No, Yaakov, it is not possible, I said. And I stopped. I could not finish the sentence because I just couldn't see how it could possibly happen. You see, it is one thing to believe in the promises of old that have already come to pass. It's one thing to believe in the prophecies of old that have already had their fulfillment. The truth that was contained inside that prophecy had already been revealed. It was one thing to believe in the crossing of the Red Sea and in the burning of the bush. It was one thing to believe in all of those promises of the past of our fathers that had already come to pass. That kind of faith takes place up here. But to believe in the promises of God that have not yet been revealed as truth, to believe in the promises of God that have not yet come to pass, that takes a kind of faith down here in the gut. And that I did not have. No, Yaakov, I said, it is not possible. And I fell silent. And so I suppose I would have remained a marginally faithful man until the day that messenger showed up. The messenger that Yaakov had sent, of course, is the one I'm talking about. One day, it was in late morning time, and I was working in my shop, and all of a sudden, Yaakov's messenger came in and said, Joseph, come, Yaakov wants to see you right away in his home. I began to wonder. I wonder what had broken that needed fixing. I was a carpenter, so I said, well, what tools do I need? What needs fixing? He said, Yaakov did not tell me of anything about tools. He just said, go get Yosef and tell him to come right away. It is urgent. So I grabbed my all-purpose bag of tools and off I went. I forgot even my belt. And I hustled over to Yaakov's home, and I walked in, and there was Yaakov, and there was my Mary, glowing, as always. I didn't notice it at the time, but she was glowing for another reason at this particular occasion. And I think she was glowing in this particular occasion because God had turned her into a prophet, and I didn't know it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I didn't know it yet. So I walked into the room, and there was Yaakov, and there was my Mary, glowing. And I said, what's going on? What's wrong? And Yaakov said, Yosef, sit down. So I sat down. And then he did the strangest thing I have ever seen him do. He got up and left the room. He left me alone in a room with his unwed daughter. That scared me. What sort of test is this, I thought? Is he putting me to the test today? That Yaakov, what is he up to? Mary said, Yosef. And of course, her voice could call me back from anywhere. I closed down my thoughts and I looked across the room at my Mary, and she said, Yosef, I have some things to tell you. That turned out to be the understatement of the century. Yosef, I have a few things to tell you. Yes, Mary, what is it? What is it? She said, I must go to Jerusalem and see Elizabeth. I said, yes, that's good. We're all worried about Elizabeth. She says, no, I'm not worried about Elizabeth anymore. She says, I'm going to see her because she's 6 months with child. I said, Elizabeth? Of Zechariah and Elizabeth? 6 months pregnant? That is not possible, I said. And I could almost hear myself saying, and yet I believe. Did I? I didn't have time to figure out whether I believed or not, for then she had more news to give me. She said, Yosef, don't worry about all of that. I've got something more important to tell you. And then she said, no, I will not tell you exactly how the rest of that conversation went in that room that day. That will remain a secret between Mary and myself. Perhaps I'm not entirely proud of some of the things that I was saying or thinking. You can use your imagination, but I can tell you this, that when I left Yaakov's house that day, I don't think there's a word for it. I was both confused and confident at the same time. Of course, I was confused by everything that had just been told me, and it was impossible. What in the world was Yaakov up to? What strange test was this that he was giving me now? Was he putting her up to this to see if I would remain obedient to the law of Moses? The law of Moses, I thought, the law of Moses. Where's my Tanakh? Okay, what must I do? The law of Moses. Okay, Moses. I know. Okay, let me see. Here it is. This, then, is the law of jealousy when a woman goes astray and defiles her husband while married to her husband. For when feelings of jealousy come over a man because he suspects his wife, here it is, I thought, right in Moses. This must be what he's up to. What must I do? The priest, it says, is to have her stand before the Lord and is to apply this entire law to her, and the husband will be innocent of any wrongdoing, but the woman will bear the consequences of her sin. This is what I need now. What else should I do? What must I do? Moses, tell me. Here it is. Okay, the priest will have her stand before he takes some of the holy water. Okay, skip a bit, brother. The grain offering, okay, for jealousy. Here it is. Yes, okay. So, okay, so he must take an offering of 1/10 of an ephah of barley flour. Okay, I've got that. 1/10 of an ephah. I'm going to need 1/10 of an ephah of barley flour. He must not pour oil on it, okay, and he must not put incense on it because it is a grain offering for jealousy, a reminder offering to draw attention to guilt. I've got it. This must be what he's asking me to do. Will I? And so this is bouncing around in my head all day. Where's the flour? Okay, no. Oh, did it say oil or no? Oh my goodness, I was so confused, and yet I was determined to follow that law so that I could divorce her quietly and find out what was going on. Until that night. And that's when the other messenger came to visit me. When a man is told by the angel of the Lord not to be afraid, that is what he must do. I wasn't sleeping well that night at all anyway, but then suddenly there he was, the angel of the Lord, and all of a sudden, now God was making me a prophet. Me, a little carpenter. He was making me a prophet. He had sent his messenger to me, and he was revealing this truth, which contained a truth that had not yet been revealed. A prophecy. For me. Do not be afraid, he said. And you might think, well, he must have said, do not be afraid because, well, there's the angel of the Lord standing in front of you. Everybody's afraid when they see the angel of the Lord standing in front of them. Yes, sure, okay, but this wasn't this angel's first rodeo. He'd seen others be afraid in front of him too. No. That's not why he told me to not be afraid. I think he had a deeper purpose for me. He told me to not be afraid because he was asking me to live, to devote my life, to stake my very life on the truth of a promise that had not yet been revealed. Suddenly, I felt like all of my ancestors had felt. They too had received the prophecy of the Lord through the prophets, and every single one of them had rejected that prophecy. And I thought to myself, isn't that what I just did to Mary? I have become like my forefathers. I can't be a prophet. And then I heard the angel's words again, "Do not be afraid, Joseph. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to live as if the thing promised has already come to pass." I needed to hear the angel tell me not to be afraid. I needed to hear it that day. I needed to keep hearing it the next day. And believe you me, I needed to keep hearing it every day of my life after Jesus was born. Do you have any idea what it's like to raise a boy who can see right through you? Your own son knows you better than you know yourself. Every sin revealed. Yes, I needed to remember the words of that angel. Do not be afraid, Joseph, for every single day I had to face Jesus in my sinful human frame. And I had to believe, I had to stake my life on a truth that had not yet been revealed, that in this Jesus, all my sin would one day be atoned for by Jesus. And it had not yet come to pass. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to stake your lives on the promises of God that contain a truth that has not yet been revealed. Oh, sure. I'm sure, just like me, you're easily willing to believe all of those ancient prophecies where the truth had already been revealed. Sure, of course you believe in the bush that was burning without being consumed. Do you not? Do you not also believe that Moses and the 12 tribes of Israel crossed the Red Sea on dry land? Of course you believe that. And do you not also believe that the virgin conceived a son and he was born the Son of God? Do you not also believe that? A truth that contains a truth that ended up being revealed. Of course you believe in that. Do you not also believe that your sins are forgiven by the death that he died on the cross? Of course you believe. It is a truth that has already been revealed to you. But can you stake your life on a truth that he has spoken that he has not yet revealed? For he has promised you that he is coming again. And now you find yourself in the very same place I was. Don't just believe it here. Don't be afraid to believe it down here. And stake your life, for he is coming soon. Amen.